Ice Cube stole this song, and let me tell you how, why, and what it was to begin with. Good artists copy, great artists steal. I stole that from someone else, Pablo Picasso. He was a great artist that many have envied when he was alive and since he passed. He stole a lot, but never copied. What's the difference? I started the video with "It Was a Good Day" by Ice Cube because I think it's the perfect example of that delineation. Let's establish a couple things before we dive into it. What is sampling? On Anderton's blog, Will Brooke Jones talked about sampling. Sampling in music involves taking a section of audio from another source, in this instance an existing song, and then reworking it into the creation of a new track. Sampling wasn't recognized by the greater music world as making valid music for some time, but eventually, after musicians and MCs fought the good fight, they won. But at what cost? One morning I was listening to music, trying to decide what I wanted to do for this week's Moving Through Music episode, going through all of my favorite songs on repeat, but then when I was listening to She's Got You High, it hit me. Well, more accurately, it hit my brother. This song was stolen. This melody was stolen. But how do you prove that? Well, this has actually been a big conversation in the music industry for a very long time, and it even involved one of the Beatles, George Harrison. We all know this song, and rightly, we love this song because it's well constructed, it's beautiful, it's music to our lovely ears, but what if it was never his song? What? How could it be? We've been grooving to this song for decades. There's no way this song is stolen. Ronnie Mack was a very popular Motown singer, songwriter, and talent manager of the popular girls group The Chiffons. He wrote He's So Fine, a song that George was already familiar with when working on My Sweet Lord. The subconscious is a very dangerous thing. After My Sweet Lord was out for a while, on All Things Must Pass, a very great record, by the way, making the charts in very big ways, the label that published He's So Fine came a-callin' with accusations of plagiarism on behalf of the song's writer, Ronnie Mack, who is now passed. Quote, I wasn't consciously aware of the similarity between He's So Fine and My Sweet Lord when I wrote the song, as it was more improvised and not so fixed. Harrison wrote in his autobiography, I Mean Mine. Although when my version of the song came out and started to get a lot of airplay, people started talking about it, and it was when I thought, why didn't I realize? It would have been very easy to change a note or here or there and not affect the feeling of the record. End quote. Who is the culprit here? George Harrison, a liar? A thief? Was the record label going too far, trying to protect its interests? Was it just plain old laziness, or was it theft? Was it merely happenstance that My Sweet Lord and He's So Fine shared a whole lot of similarities? The court eventually ruled that George had plagiarized on accident subconsciously. There's a word for it actually, cryptomnesia. Commonly referred to as subconscious plagiarism is the process of presenting someone else's work as your own because you cannot remember perceiving it prior to using it in your creation. Now the question is, what is the common denominator between Ice Cube's song and George's song? Laziness. Now many of you know well that it is not easy for me to criticize someone like George Harrison in this way. He's one of my favorite artists as well as a huge inspiration to me as a writer. I think he's one of the greatest musicians ever to pick up a pen and sing a note. But even he is not invincible against the flaws of human error, and neither is Ice Cube. Obviously, these are different cases in premise. Ice Cube intentionally sampled an Isley Brothers song, while George subconsciously plagiarized a Ronnie Mack song musically. I think the two songs and artists are at fault for diametrically opposed reasons. Most people love It Was a Good Day because of the underlying beat, the music motivating the song, while My Sweet Lord is a great song because of the lyrics that are uniquely coded to George's love and zeal for his god, Vishnu, expressing it in the style of an old school hymn. Now, this is not me saying George is a crap musician or Ice Cube is a bad rapper. But when you get lazy with the music itself, we got a problem. On Soul on the Horn, D. Prosper wrote about the jazz roots in hip-hop. Quote, "In the 1990s, hip-hop music underwent a significant transformation as producers began to incorporate jazz influences into their beats. This was primarily achieved through the use of samples from jazz records, which were taken from vinyl records and then manipulated and rearranged to create new compositions." End quote. In a Tribe Called Quest song titled "Oh My God," they say at the end of the songs,
"The title, MC, means Master of Ceremony. Some people who MC don't know what this term means."
This is a bold, striking statement at the end of the song with a whole lot of pathos to it. According to the Catholic Church, the Master of Ceremonies is an official of the papal court responsible for the proper and smooth conduct of the elaborate rituals. Now, I don't care about any of the Pope stuff in there, but I think what's around that is the key to all of this. The MC is there to cultivate the sound, to curate the vibes, the music.
We got the jazz, 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 we got the jazz.
In his book, The Art of MCing, hip-hop artist Stickman of the group Dead Prez wrote, quote, "A rapper is to an MC what an average street fighter is to a trained martial artist. They are both fighters, but the degree and depth of their skill is very different." End quote. To be an MC is to be grown in your art, to be great, and that means respecting the music, loving the music. And to love and respect the music is to take sampling and plagiarism both as serious matters at different ends of the spectrum. Now let's take a look at what it means to really sample, take inspiration from, or steal as an artist. This is already a great song on its own, but what if you took one small piece of this song, played with it, made it your own, just really transformed it? You have I Know by De La Soul that really does that. To start the song, they loop a chord from Peg, getting more into the song using "I Know I Love You Better" routinely throughout the song. The difference between this and what we were talking about earlier is the production, that it leans on the strengths of the group, not the weaknesses, and actually weighs in on the potential of hip-hop and shows them to be true MCs. Now, looping and splitting is not the only way to sample a song. Sometimes you don't want to just use that audio to make the song. Sometimes you want to recreate it yourself, either as a joke or just to improve the vibe of the song. I think one of the best examples of this can be found in a MF Doom song.
I get no kick from champagne. Mere alcohol doesn't thrill me at all. So tell me, why shouldn't it be true? I get a kick out of brew.
Now, Doom's voice in a melodic fashion is not his strong suit, but that's kind of the point. It's all a bit. In the beginning of One Beer, Doom is interpolating "I Get a Kick Out of You," popularly sung by Frank Sinatra, but originally created by Ethel Merman. Okay, that begs the question, what do you mean by interpolate? According to the United States Copyright Office, an interpolation involves taking part of an existing musical work as opposed to a sound recording and incorporating it into a new work. While sometimes confused with sampling a sound recording, interpolating a musical work is different because it does not involve using any of the actual audio sounds contained in a pre-existing recording. Instead, new audio is recorded. Speaking of MF Doom, he's the perfect example of an artist who doesn't just sample other music, but also samples sounds from TV, crafting the musical narrative around him being the character of Dr. Doom from Marvel Comics. Sampling, when it gets down to it, can be any kind of sound. For instance, way back when, in the 1940s, Henry and Schaefer Pierre coined the idea of musique concrete. The two crazy music scientists used two rudimentary disc cutters to create sound palettes never ever heard before. The foundation of it all being the sounds of industry, trains, and machines, and it started a revolution.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
Listening to Revolution 9, you may or may not feel the sensation of being driven insane. You are not alone. This song does not have a lot of fans, but I think it's really genuinely fascinating from a pure production point of view. George Martin, the producer of the Beatles, said this about the song, quote, "I love Revolution 9. You could sit in front of those two speakers and actually see things happening if you shut your eyes. It wasn't music, but it was a sound picture." End quote. As profoundly weird, incoherent, and upsetting for some people that Revolution 9 is, it's a really fascinating study of the power of sound to elicit emotion. Karl-Heinz Stockhausen was a German avant-garde composer who did much in spearheading the use of scores and recordings utilizing aleatory, controlled chants sound events described by many as musique concrete. Paul and then John became enamored with his work, which began to fuel their hunger for being as creative in the recording studio as possible. That's what all of this is about at the end of the day. We need to be creative. As a YouTuber, I'm all but too familiar with the rules and regulations around using copyrighted work here on YouTube, specifically under the fair use umbrella, and I think in a weird roundabout way, those guidelines, those rules, might be the answer to all of this.
Give me a second while I look up my little file of things I really don't give a about.
Quote, "Fair use is a legal doctrine that says use of copyrighted protected material under certain circumstances is allowed without permission from the copyright holder." End quote. Remixing arts and media has been a thing for a very long time, even longer than YouTube has even been around. Collage comes from the French word coller, meaning to glue, to stick together. Tate describes collage as, quote, "the technique and the resulting work of art in which pieces of paper, photographs, fabric, and other ephemera are arranged and stuck down onto a supporting surface." End quote. Now that is a very technical, tactile, surface level description of collage, but it is indicative of what art is and needs to be.
I want to deal with a bigger insult, man. The heat, the heat, the heat, the heat, the heat.
It's coming down hard. We got to get our shit together.
It's time to go left and not right. Gotta get it together forever. Gotta get it together for brothers.
A while ago, I watched a really good video by NerdSync, one of my all-time favorite YouTubers on here, about Jack Kirby and his love of collage. Speaking of collage, not only was Jack the King Kirby an avid lover of the art form, but so was Pablo Picasso. Remember? Good artists copy, great artists steal. What does it mean to steal as an artist? In Jack Kirby's Collages in Context, Stephen Brower wrote about Kirby's first foray into collage. Quote, "Kirby's entry into the world of collage did not begin with the Fantastic Four, or even by his own hand. Richard Hamilton included a Simon and Kirby young romance splash page in his seminal 1956 collage, Just What It Is That Makes Today's Homes So Different, So Appealing." launching both pop art and Kirby into the fine art world. High culture had begun to give sway to pop culture through the most democratic of visual art forms, collage." End quote. Now, do we call Hamilton's usage of a Kirby Simon Page copying or sampling? What defines that? Quote, "Courts typically focus on whether the use of copyright-protected material is transformative. This means whether the use adds new expression or meaning to the original material, or whether it merely copies from the original." End quote. To steal as an artist is to transform, transmogrify, to elevate the beauty of the originator and highlight your own skills as an artist. Quote,
And it's very hard to talk about these things without being very corny. You use a word like self-purgation or epiphany, they think you're either a religious weirdo or an asshole college professor. But those are the words for the process, this transmutation, this renaissance, this rebirth, which is the basis of all life.
You know, Francis is right. There is something to those words. Transmutation, renaissance, rebirth. Maybe that's what I'm doing here. Making these videos, remixing, sampling this art, these shows, these movies, these comics, this music, a collage, all for you. My art, my song, trying to convince you every single day to look deeper, read deeper, to explore the worlds inside comic pages, film reels, and lyrics, and everything in between. I shudder to call what I do here art. I make these silly little videos about the nerdy stuff I love, but it means a lot to me. In making these videos, it's all about answering those questions, trying to find the answer to what I'm doing here, and put to words my song. And maybe, along the way, I'll sample yours.